listening to Pop This, the podcast where three women talk about pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen, Andrea Gin, and Andrea Warner.
Okay, so I have a challenge. It's for you. This is going to be very revealing about each one of us, depending on how we feel about this challenge. So it comes from Instagram and this account called Very British Problems Official. And the challenge is, I don't like the expression, so I won't use it, but can you do this? 1, watch an entire film without looking at your phone once. I mean, the whole time. 2, once the film is finished, don't pick up your phone. 3, after the film, read nothing online about plot holes, production, characters, box office takings, actor personal lives, nothing. 4, look at no reviews of the film, professional or otherwise. 5, just go straight to bed. Do not Google the film. I dare you.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I do it all the time.
See, I do.
Yeah, I knew AG would be like, yeah, no problem at all.
Most of the time, like, I don't even know where my phone is, like, most of the day.
Truly, it's trying to get a hold of AG is like, I might as well use carrier pigeons.
Yeah.
Like, it's
It would probably be a lot more effective, yeah.
like, I wish Frankie was able to just run between our homes, but we live too far apart. I think for me, I could do the first 4, but I am on my phone before bed, and like, it might not be related to the movie, but like, I couldn't not pick up my phone before bed. I couldn't go straight to bed without like picking up my phone. So
Have you ever tried?
Yeah, but it's usually like where I'm so dead tired that I pass out. Like, and I don't say like I'm on my phone like necessarily reading the internet. Like, I'm usually like doing a spelling game or like something to sort of like get myself sort of relaxed, or I'm listening to an audiobook or like whatever. I'm certainly not emailing from bed. I try not to ever. But yeah, I 4 to 5 I could do.
Oh, I mean, I could do them all if I had to, but I don't want to. Like, I mean, part of the movie watching experience, like, okay, no, I do this in a movie theater, the first few anyway. But when I come out, for sure, I'll look up, when I get home, I will look up reviews, and I will, you know, I'll be curious about all those things. So I don't think I could do it. No, I just looked at it and thought, well, I mean, if there was $1 million on the line, yes, but no, I could not.
So it's just survivor rules for you. If you pay me $1 million, I might be able to hold out.
Yeah. But I'm curious. I'm like, but then now I think, okay, perhaps the person's point is that if you give it a day, let's say, then you give yourself a chance to marinate how you feel,
Exactly,
right? Like,
Yeah.
what your reviews are as opposed to really quickly reading somebody else's. So I see that point.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I have to, because I don't have my phone in my hand usually while I'm watching, like, I have to be motivated to get up and like walk somewhere and look something up to like find out that information. And like, that's a bit of a barrier. And so that's why I tend to not do it. And I think from not doing it, I'm now more comfortable with going back to how I was like in the 90s watching movies and just like watching a movie and then sitting on it and thinking about it. And then maybe, like having that be it. And then maybe reading a review in like the newspaper the week after or something. Like it's simple. It's simple that way. You don't go down a rabbit hole looking at what the actor has been through in their career and what every role they've played and what every critic has thought, what the score is on Rotten Tomatoes, what outfit the person wore to the premiere. Like, you don't get into all that stuff.
Do you think that, like, so for me, I really do think, like, it depends on why I'm watching the movie. And I mean, I gotta admit, very rarely am I watching a movie just for the experience of seeing a movie. Like, typically I am watching either for this podcast or I'm watching because of something else, or like for a long time I reviewed film, and that was like that. I think some of it changed my relationship a little bit to this kind of thing where, and I mean, I do love movies, and so I will like, or like if I'm on an airplane, the airplane is where I finally watched Twisters, the new one, and I had a good time on that airplane watching Twisters. I was like, this is better than I thought it would be. all right, let's sure, cool. Do I fully understand Glenn Powell? No, but that's fine. And I watched that just for myself to distract myself on an airplane, and it was fine. But that's all it was, I got to say, I didn't look anything up after. I didn't read reviews. Didn't do anything. I just let myself get off that plane and let it wash out of my body.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you write about movies professionally, it's different. Like, you need to know all that information.
Yeah, sure. I'm just saying, it's even different for watching it for this podcast is I'm often taking notes of things I want to talk about with you two after, and or God, writing the outline sometimes is, I will say occasionally, a real joy killer.
To look up other people's reviews.
Just I love that stuff. I love research. I love seeing sort of what people are thinking. But sometimes you see a movie and you're just like, this is incredible. And then you read a bunch of takes where people have very clearly brought a different agenda into their reviewing. And you're just and I mean, it's good for us because it gives us something to talk about. But I will say, the number of bad hot takes I've read from primarily cisgender male critics on things that I have enjoyed, it does erode the soul a little bit in some ways. Talking about it with you two builds it back up, which is great, but would love for it just not to be like that.
Yeah, no, I know it's true. I could probably, let's just say I've got movies to watch this week and I'll report back next week. I'll do it. I'll do the challenge.
But are you watching these movies just for fun, or are you doing it for work?
It'll probably be just for fun.
Then try it.
But I did last night, and this will be my recommendation at the end of the episode. I'll jump ahead a bit. But I did watch a Real Pain last night, which was, I don't know if either of you have seen it. Really beautiful. Yeah. You have. Just so I was listening to the music and I thought, oh, this sounds like Chopin. And then I thought, wait a second, isn't he a Polish composer? And I had to look that up because I didn't know, and it did change. And I felt like it changed things for me just thinking about that. But anyway, I see the point, and I will try to do it. No, I will do it. I will do it.
You can do it. I bet you can do it. I think, yeah. I mean, I think it's fine if you want to look stuff up too and acquire information and trivia and stuff like that. But I do see the beauty of sitting with something, or even just chatting about it with your friends and talking about how you actually feel about it. That was honestly interesting segue, but I watched Anora at home with 5 other people, and then we chatted about it after for a good half hour until I finally was hey guys, I gotta kick you out of my home because it's too late. But it was really nice to just sort of hear people's thoughts immediately, and everyone trying to figure out how they were feeling about it, and it's the kind of thing where we didn't immediately go to our phones. It was immediately just a group chat.
And that's interesting too, because in doing my research for having to write this outline for this film, I read about how Sean Baker deliberately wanted to leave the ending of this movie open for people to decide for themselves what they think happens at the end of the movie and why.
Yeah, I think he did. I'm Andrea Warner.
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I'm Andrea Gin.
And you're listening to Pop This. And we're talking to Anora.
It's award season, people. We're in it.
We're deep in it.
We're right in it. Academy Award nominations have been put off because of the tragic fires in Los Angeles. But we're talking about a lot of the films that are probably going to get a lot of nominations.
And Mikey Madison, who's the lead in this film, is probably going to be nominated for lead actress, I would think. Best actress.
Oh, I would think so. Yeah. I would hope so.
Yeah, I would hope so as well.
And
I think...
Yeah, and then who knows about possible best picture or best director as well.
Yeah, I mean, it speaks again to the weirdness of the Golden Globes that this was nominated in the best musical or comedy category.
But wasn't substance as well like that?
I mean, I gotta say, I laughed more in The Substance than I did in Anora, but you're right. The comedies are an interesting skew of comedy. Like, quote unquote comedy.
Well, sometimes because another thing about watching movies at home is that you're not treated to somebody sitting next to you laughing at awkward times where you're going, was that funny or is that person just so way off base or something, you know? I don't know. Like, I don't know what this one would get a lot of laughs, you know? I don't know.
I felt though that there was a tonal change in the movie when it became like a bit of a bit of a caper. And they're in a
the
group.
kidnap caper part.
Yeah.
After you're fairly confident that she is not specifically going to come to physical harm, for the most part, it does get a little more. I think some of the words that people had described it as like sort of slapstick almost. Mm-hmm. And I mean, yeah, it's a thrill to see her beat up a bunch of men. Like, I love that. So that was great. But some wild tonal shifts in this film, I gotta say.
Woo. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, AG, do you want to read the background, even though you wrote the outline?
Sure. Anora is a 2024 American comedy drama film written, directed, and edited by Sean Baker. The film premiered on May 21st, 2024 at the 77th Cannes Film Festival, where it won the Palme d'Or and received critical acclaim. It was named one of the top 10 films of 2024 by the National Board of Review and the American Film Institute and received 5 nominations at the Golden Globes, including Best Motion Picture, Comedy or Musical, Best Actress for Madison, and Best Director. It grossed $32.5 million worldwide on a $6 million budget, becoming Baker's highest grossing film.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible. Lisa, do you want to read the synopsis?
Sure. Anora, a young sex worker from Brooklyn, gets her chance at a Cinderella story when she meets and impulsively marries the son of an oligarch. Once the news reaches Russia, her fairy tale is threatened as the parents set out for New York to get the marriage annulled. Which, yes, is very bare bones there, but man, that was
just what came with like the movie description from the production company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I had read online somewhere this movie described as a romantic comedy. And so I was confused when Lisa texted me when she was watching. She was like, hey, it's really tense. And I was like, all right. Okay. I was like, maybe it's not a romantic comedy. And then obviously we rented it on Amazon and there was like a little trailer that played before, like as you're waiting to sort of press confirm or whatever that you're going to rent it. And I'm watching this little trailer and I'm like, this doesn't seem like a rom-com. And I don't know where I read this or if my brain I just was like, wow.
In a sense, like there is a romance happening and there is some comedy happening. It's just not what we think as the rom-com genre of films.
Well,
agreed.
Yes. Yeah, I don't think this is going to be like, oh, we'll watch a double bill, My Best Friend's Wedding and Anora. Like, that's not happening.
I mean, Pretty Woman and Anora, I can see being sort of like a double bill here, but
Which is interesting because, you know, like the lore of Pretty Woman is that the original ending is that Richard Gere just chucks a bunch of money at Julia Roberts and leaves. But they had a test audience who just lost their minds watching it, going, no, no. So a lot of people felt kind of speaking of tonal shifts.
They wanted a man to rescue her and sweep her off her feet and take her away.
But they also, it was very important, that last line of Pretty Woman is that and this is like such an important line for Pretty Woman, and I think its legacy, is that Vivian says like, and she rescues him right back. Like that is the two-hander of how Pretty Woman sort of transcends a little bit the sort of like typical fairy tale rescue scenario, is that like Vivian has changed him and rescued him from his own bleak existence. This movie
did not have a test audience in Canoga Park.
Well, I appreciated the ending. I really did. Like,
yeah, me too.
Like, I think we're gonna spoil this film in a lot of ways. So if you haven't watched it yet,
but yeah, maybe. Then again, we might all three have very different. Like, if you said the director Sean Baker who wrote it, left the endings, he said, ambiguous.
Yeah,
I think all three of us could have a completely different impression on what's going to happen.
Well, I gotta say, I absolutely misconstrued part of what was happening in that final scene, and was quickly corrected by the folks in the room with me who were like, "Oh no, I don't think there." Anyway, we can save that for towards the end. But
Right.
I was like, "It's too dark an angle. I can't tell." Anyway, it's cool.
What a
Cool.
shock. Your mind went to a dark angle.
Real dark place. Real dark place. Gotta say, real dark place.
What?
Yeah, I know. Me?
About love, relationships. He went.
Yeah.
What?
Like have you? So I haven't seen all of Sean Baker's other projects. I have, or like films. I have seen The Florida Project.
Me too.
And I think we talked about it on the podcast maybe
Yeah.
a long time ago. Yeah, and I remember really liking that and enjoying that. And it's another sort of like, difficult one. But I haven't seen his other films. So I can't speak to how it sort of compares to other efforts. Do either of you have like more?
I've seen Tangerine, and that's an excellent film, and it's also about sex workers. I think, like we were talking about Pretty Woman earlier, and like the difference between, like the thing that makes Sean Baker unique is like his humanist approach to filmmaking, which is that he doesn't try to tell people stories and, put a sepia tone over it or make it feel nostalgic or, like he just wants to show kind of people's real lives as it is.
Yeah. I think he's trying to make movies with empathy, and I think he is empathetic, but I do think he has that little bit of like sympathy that comes from like that sort of outside. And I don't think it's necessarily that he's voyeuristic, but I do think like he's always sort of an outsider. And one of the pieces that you quoted from here, AG, in your outline kind of captures that like pretty well. And I thought that was like really interesting, is like the piece that was written by Risdon Roberts for Slate. She, sorry, I actually don't know Risdon's pronouns, so I'm just going to say Risdon Roberts from Slate. And Risdon writes, like, this is the part that Baker will never fully understand. Clients are a means to an end. Money will never break your heart. Is that he's sort of inserting his idea of like what being a sex worker is. He can't help himself. And like, that's where sort of that, like, that's where a little bit of that sympathy savior complex comes in like what he's doing.
Well, that piece in Slate is really excellent because Risdon is a sex worker and talks about the movie from that point of view and talks about how, there were sex workers that were consultants on the movie and there are some that, played small roles in the movie. And like the headline of the story is I'm a sex worker and Anora is one of the few movies about my profession that doesn't make me cringe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I can see that because there's a lot of movies out there about that profession that are full of cringe.
Yeah, I think I have to say that for me, this movie kind of fits into that, whatever we're going to call this. We need a new genre name. But when Anora says to her boss, I'm going to go away for a week, he wants to tell her what to do. And she said, you start offering me health care. You giving me a 401k. Then you can tell me what to do. And I was thinking so much about the movie Hustlers as well.
Yeah.
That there were this group of women that, were, when they weren't working for themselves, had a boss that didn't care they had to pick up their kids or didn't care what was happening in their lives. And, I think, for a lot of women, this kind of work is you're self-employed. You're not going to have to be. But she is working for an employer in this movie. And I don't know where to put this into like some kind of a genre of where I want to call like, realistic stories about women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I think that like sort of like and specifically realistic stories about women and women's labor like watching how Anora works and that's sort of what the sort of whole first third of the movie is like just like what her job is and like how much it is about appeasing and giving her clients what they want. And she's very good at her job and also making sure that she is getting what she wants and what she deserves as well. And like, I found that piece of it really fascinating. Is just Mikey Madison is so good, you guys.
So good.
Yeah.
I know that I did hear about a consultant saying that I heard an interview with someone saying they consulted, for the film, and said that when you do work in this, industry, you do see women eating out of Tupperware in the dressing room. And so they did add that scene. Like, these are women bringing their leftovers. This is work, right? They put them in the fridge. They take them out. What do you need, a snack? Where are you supposed to go? I do think, I almost think that in a weird way, like there was another story to be told. But when you saw that, you kind of want to go more onto that level and see more of that. And then it took off on a whole other tangent. But anyway.
Yeah, I think for Mikey Madison, this is like a breakout role. I'd seen the other things that she's been in before. Like, she was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and that television show, Better Things. But this is the first time like I've sort of registered who she is. Alyssa Wilkinson in the New York Times called it like a star-making turn. Like every Oscar season, we see somebody emerge as a star that we've never seen before. And I think this year it's her.
I do too. And you know what? I want to say also that one of the really uncomfortable things that I felt really terrible, like obviously this is a movie about a sex worker. Obviously it's a movie about a woman who, does things, does dancing on people. Like, we watch this, we see what her daily life looks like. Like, that's the important part of this movie. And then I see a clip of her on Jimmy Fallon, and he says, "Have your parents seen this movie?"
Ugh, I hate it.
And she says, "Yes, they're so proud of me. My grandmother has seen it several times." Like, they can make the distinction that I'm playing a part. And even for the character, Annie or Anora, can make that distinction. I'm playing a part.
Yeah. I mean, look, am I going to say that I expect better from Jimmy Fallon?
No, I know.
No, but it would be great if people stopped asking that question. And they often, I think, only ask it of women who are doing nude work in films or performing sexual acts in films. Like, oh God. And I'm not saying I want to hear a bunch of people asking Daniel Craig if his parents have seen his penis in whatever, all the different films he's shown his penis in. But I just
I've never heard anyone ask a man that. Have your parents seen this? Never once, ever.
God, I know.
And I just think that also, if I know from, she's the lovely professional person who has to just like answer the question straight up, right? But, in a perfect world, she would go, and why, just asking me, why do you think they shouldn't see this? Tell me.
Yeah. It would be, I feel like there's something in my brain that's going off that has happened at least once when a woman was put on the spot by a male interviewer, and she was like, well, why wouldn't they see it? But I have to research it, and we're recording a podcast, so I won't do that right now because I also respect the film rules. We're in this moment. We're not.
Yeah. Yes.
But I totally agree. It's like, it's so frustrating, and especially like, I don't know. I really, but this kind of speaks to a little bit, I think, of like the way that many voters in the Academy are watching this movie. And like, there are a ton of people who are talking about Mikey Madison's performance and how wonderful it is and how nuanced it is. And even just like her accent work, incredible. Like she's really like the heart and soul of this film. And a lot of people, all they can think about the whole time is like how many times they've seen her boobs. Like, yeah. And it's, ugh.
But even, what's interesting is that Sean Baker even wrote that into the movie in the sense that when it's discovered that Buddy's married, God, she said his name so many times. Why can't I think of his name? They're on the phone and they keep calling her different names and she's yelling and protesting, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm a person.
Yeah. I am a person. I am not just a stereotype. I'm not just a slur. I'm not like, Vanya or Ivan.
Vanya, that's it. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Vanya. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, there we are. Yeah.
Wait. I mean, his performance also is very good. I was worried at some point that it was going to be revealed that he was 16, and that she was going to end up charged or something. Like I wasn't sure where that was going to go because I am too old now that I can't tell someone's age. I can't tell if they look over 21 or not. He has his performance is quite good as well. But like this is sort of the piece of the movie that like is so perfect is when they're outside the airplane and they're on the stairs and Vanya is situated above her on the staircase and she's on the ground and he's like, I mean, obviously it's not subtle, but he's like physically above her because he's a son of an oligarch and she's like below because she's quote unquote just a sex worker, but they are married. She's asking him like, isn't this real for you? Basically. And he just viciously spits out, are you stupid? And like watching Mikey Madison's face in that moment, as because I don't think she necessarily at all ever was like, I'm in love with this person in any way, shape, or form. But she had a specific sort of like different way that this endgame was going to play out. And when he asks her such a horrible, mean question, when all she has done is be exactly what he's asked her to be, like she has fulfilled her end of the contract. He has not. And watching her face sort of like go into this whole other like really fully, she like drops the client pleasing persona and goes into being like a negotiator boss of herself and what her worth is. It's so good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, Mark Edelstein is quite a subtle transformation that he does in the movie too. Cause he kind of goes from like spoiled, rich kid to they call him like a child, like the gangsters call him a child at some point in the movie. And then that's like how you start seeing him for like the last half of the movie is like I saw him as like a much younger child that didn't belong in this space and didn't have any control over what he was doing. And I think that was just like a very subtle, acting shift on his part as well.
Yeah. It was, but also just, I think the stark reality of, who Annie is, what she pulls together, how she lives, like in a house with her sister and has to keep a life going. And then there's this, blob of a human that, has like sex, does drugs, and plays video games. That's it. Like literally a organism.
Watching her constantly curled up in his arms as he plays video games.
Or smokes out of a bong.
And both of them are so pale, they're blending into the couch where you can't tell where humans are and where the couch begins. Like there's so many visual pieces to this movie that are so interesting.
The house itself, right? And the decor and...
Yeah. And I think it hits a note with the zeitgeist because like so many children of the uber wealthy are, in the news for doing unhinged things that regular people can't even conceive of. Like, I think that there's something about it that was just like spoke to this moment of like, yes, there are children of the ultra wealthy, like living lives like this. This is what it looks like. They go to Vegas on a private plane and you know what I mean? Party with their friends and there's like no accountability for anything. They don't have any responsibilities. They just don't have to do anything. And then at some point they're just like called home to like start working in the family business by their parents.
Yeah, and just the way, again, like back to the house and the plane and that, that suite in, or whatever that was in Las Vegas, just to see it used in, obviously the way it's mostly used, was so depressing, just so depressing. Just seeing, it didn't look glamorous at all, right? I mean, and I expect that was the idea of the design of this ultra wealthy suite in Las Vegas. But I thought one of these kinds of films are so good at that. Like he is a master at just making things that you would think would be great and then just showing them for what they are.
Yeah.
The the ways in which like they talk about sort of those pieces of that life, like, and it looks sort of like a glamour that like is like most people actually don't want, and it feels gross and weird, as you just said, Lisa. But like even thinking about sort of the conversation around the coat and like what that coat sort of like symbolizes and the work that that one fashion item is doing in the film, like it's incredible. like I truly be thinking about this coat for like a long time, because I just think like the way in which they have this like fight about whether it's mink or and it's real and or sable, and like
Russian sable, not mink.
Russian sable, not mink, and like that's so much better. And just like these little kind of things about like and just these little details about Russia that are popping up in these very weird and sometimes, you know, homophobic ways too, and like the constant like sort of F slur, and like the idea of like Ivan tells his parents it would be like, oh, would you prefer I married like a gay man to like this sex worker? And his parents are basically like, yeah, even though there's like all of this like anti-gay propaganda in Russia and stuff, like there's so much going on in very subtle ways that like it never becomes bigger. It always just sort of stays there as like background detail, but it's also additionally off-putting and tense, and like you know like the Annie is not always the most empathetic protagonist at all.
No, she is not. But also I thought like other things like the just getting a sense of like the way he told the story around how many Russian immigrants there are in New York. Like just that idea, like, you know, going to all these clubs and bars and, you know, it was just like they knew all the places. And there were so many.
Into Brighton Beach, like, like the heart of like sort of, it's, but I mean, I gotta say like the majority of sort of any information that like in pop culture around Brighton Beach always comes back to like Law and Order SVU or something. Like that's where, you know, it hasn't had the most flattering depictions.
No.
But I think another interesting trick that this movie plays is that, you know, from our point of view, we're always going to hear the story from like the public's point of view, which is exactly what their parents are talking about, is that like the son of this oligarch has married a sex worker. You know what I mean? That's the headlines. That's what would be going viral on the internet. And this movie is like showing us what it looks like from the other side of the coin. In this movie, you see like how it's complicated. It's like not just a black and white person out of control. Like there's this like other person on the other side of the story who is also part of the story. And it's not like a simple, like she's like somehow tricked or coerced this billionaire playboy into like marrying her or something like that. It's like a way more complicated story than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think they treat aspects of it with like a bit of tenderness, which is kind of nice as well, because they have this like in the proposal scene, which I thought was actually like kind of a little masterclass in acting from both of them, as like we see it go from joke to reality in the space of a few sentences, and we see Yvonne sort of like seem to sober up a tiny bit to sort of like ask the question, but he says, he's like, I'm looking for a green card. Like that's, I want to stay in America. I don't want to go back to Russia. And she understands precisely in that moment exactly what, cards she can hold in that exchange. And that's great. And so they negotiate the carats of the diamond for the ring, and I really liked how that played out, because it's not about, he's getting what he needs from her. She's going to get what she needs from him. And it's never an even playing field in terms of power, obviously, because he has a lot of money. And, that's just like, that's beyond late stage capitalism. That's like, he's billionaire 1%er kind of thing. But just fascinating to see how it plays out. And there still manages to be like a little bit of fun and humor and sort of almost cuteness when they go to the actual chapel, because like they're both so young and they're so winning in their performances. Like I hate how much I was charmed by the actual like relationship that they sort of have, in addition to sort of the transactional nature of it.
Okay, but I'm gonna like do a what's like mind blowing or whatever. What do we call that? There's a word for it. I'm gonna blow your minds. I'm just gonna say something else. Okay, what if, as you know, it was described as a rom-com, we're focusing on the wrong relationship?
Oh, you think
it's Igor,
the
that she meets
kidnapper,
the kidnapper, who reluctant. Let's be honest, reluctant kidnapper doesn't know what he's doing. If you watch that now, like when you think, now that we know the ending, if you think back, all the signs that when he brings her the scarf, when he genuinely,
of course,
likes her.
Lisa is pulling this string out of the story.
What? Am I not wrong?
It was
Am
so
I wrong?
predictable. Andrea would go to a dark place at the end. It's so predictable that you would go to like the romance aspect of it at the end.
What,
No,
you're
so
in the middle? You don't have to take a side? Or
AG is just neutral. She just watched a film.
Yeah,
Exactly.
she didn't even look up a review.
Until she had to write the outline. She was forced.
I mean, there were so many little things. Like, I'm just going to say, like, there was that really, to me, like, the scenes were, a lot of them, very, very long, especially the initial kind of kidnapping scene was quite long. But the other scene to me that was really amazing was after everything's concluded, she's going to get her money. She has to leave Vegas and go back to New York. And, you're allowed one more night in the house to get your stuff. And so it's just her and Igor just watching TV. And like, she's really, really angry, obviously. And he really just likes her. So he's just enjoying the company. But he does this thing that you see in movies occasionally. When he goes to take the cigarettes, he takes two and lights both
yes, he
of them.
lights one for her. I noted that.
Yes. Yes,
No,
I noted that too. Yeah.
I mean, I knew that he liked her from the outset. And I knew that we were sort of being set up to like be watching like a silent second B story to like how this might potentially shake out. Like I was watching it and realizing that. Here's where
Here we go.
I know, and I'm so sorry. But when they have this conversation about quote unquote rape eyes, and it's a pretty distressing conversation, but at the same time we know that she feels that she is safe because she can say these things to him and still stay in the house with him, and she is okay. Like, we understand that this is her putting him in a place to be like, she's exerting what power she has in this moment to like, she understands that he is liking her. She knows how men work, but she also like, I mean, he did, he did kidnap her and work for these other people and like hold her against her will. And, all of these things are true. So when we get to the final scene and he carries her bags up the stairs and he comes back into the car and he shows her that he got her ring back for him.
I think he did it before he left, didn't he? Before he took the bags up the stairs? Maybe
he gave, maybe he gave her the ring back before he took the bags upstairs. Yeah. I can't, but anyway. So she stays in the car, doesn't get out to get into her house. And he comes back in the car, and then she decides to like climb on his lap and have sex with him. And so I thought because I still didn't trust Igor, because we saw how he could turn when he's handed a baseball bat, and he like breaks up that shop. Like, and we know that he has hired Muscle, who I think can turn on the violence when he needs to, because that's been his job for these people. But obviously, him and Anora are basically sort of like, they're just workers to this, like people to exploit to this like family. So they are on the same level. Anyway, so I mistook him when he's holding her face. I thought he was strangling her a little bit.
Oh,
well, really?
And yeah,
Jesus,
and
wow,
and
you
so,
go there.
So I was watching. I was like, this is awful. I don't like it. Like, it's like, I thought it was like one more man that you cannot trust in this film. I thought he was strangling her a little bit, and that then she breaks down crying on him. But everyone else in the room felt that he was just holding her face because he likes her so much, and
he wanted to kiss her,
and that's what like caused her to have all of the stuff culminated in the breakdown. So my interpretation, and I understand that I am probably wrong, but I thought, oh, this got dark and stayed dark. maybe not. Maybe I am wrong. I understand that I am maybe wrong in this. But that it's she's had a heck of a 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's what I thought at the end of the movie, is just that, like, she cries because she's had such a traumatic, stressful experience where she's had to hold it together. Like, she hasn't been able to have, you know, a meltdown over any of it until this point. And then I feel like she finally decides that she can. And I think that's the end of the movie. I don't know. And I think maybe she just gets out of the car and walks back into the house with the ring.
Okay, third take. Take 3. I was reading it, is that she when he put the ring in her hand and she just sat there, I just felt like she kind of did oh my gosh, look what this person did for me, you know? And her only way, as we've learned about her in this movie, to thank a man is through sex.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what she went to do. And I think then there was something about her that went, it just was too much. Like, she had just done that for another man and thought maybe that would be something. And here she was doing, like, it just felt like it overwhelmed her. This idea that the only way I know how to thank a man is to do this. And he didn't even, you know, we got the sense that he was very surprised. And like the previous scene we were discussing, if he wanted to rape her, he would have, right? I mean, they were in the same house, and maybe even in the car he could have, right? He could have locked all the doors, you know. So I there was something to me that just, that scene was, he wanted to kiss her because he liked her. Like, he didn't want to just sit there and have his penis rubbed. He wanted to kiss her. You know, it was
Yeah, he didn't want to just sit there and have his penis rubbed, guys. This is my favorite quote from you ever in the history of this podcast. I want it on the record right now that is absolutely incredible. It's not just enough to talk about sex. He specifically didn't just want...
Well, what I mean by that is, I'm not saying he would say, no, please don't rub my penis. I'm just saying that he, you know, he's a good looking guy. I'm sure he doesn't, you know, he could go out and get his penis rubbed anywhere, right? Like, you know.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I think, and I like the power of an ambiguous ending, because I think it is sort of, but like, it's not that ambiguous, because what we see at the end of it all is that Annie is kind of like bereft and weeping on a man's chest, literally while this person's penis is still inside her. Mm-hmm. So like so this is where like it kind of comes back to something for me that's in one of the reviews. It was Sarah talking about it on Lainey Gossip, is just about sort of like a dissonance. She says there's a dissonance in Baker's work that at this point I don't think can be reconciled. He's drawn to stories about people and worlds in which he is not native. He will always be an outsider representing something he cannot truly understand. And that's not to say she goes on to say it's not to say it's not a good film. It's just that like it can't, like there's always going to be a gap between the background and that of his subjects.
Yeah,
like
but
his personal background and that of his subjects. And
yeah,
I think
sure. But he's not making a documentary. He's making a story, and he's telling it from he wants it to be the story he wants to tell, right? I mean,
I know. I just think like it takes a little bit. Like, I'm curious as to how Risden feels about that as the final scene. Let's put it that way. I want like, and maybe Risden writes about it in the full piece. I've only read the excerpts here that are in the outline, but I'm going to go to Risden's piece after. And
but also, Annie is her own person. There's very little about her. I think she makes some reference about where her parents live, and she's living with her sister, and she doesn't seem close to anybody. And when she kept meeting the parents, she kept saying, "I'm so honored to be part of your family."
Yeah,
that was such a big thing she was saying over and over again, and that really started to make me so sad that she was starting to, envision, you know, like family dinners and vacations and you know what I mean? Like that's all of a sudden I noticed that was a longing in her as well.
So Risden did write about how they felt about the ending at the end of that article.
Good.
And the quote is, I suppose the filmmakers wanted to leave the audience with some hope for Ani eventually having a happy ending, but to me, it felt oblivious, missing the point. For Ani and many sex workers, the real Cinderella story is about survival, or ideally transcending the need to survive. In sex worker movies like Pretty Women, there's often a man who comes to the rescue in some way. Maybe he's a client, maybe he's a nice guy who sees the true her. And even though that does occasionally happen in the real world, a far more accurate and relatable ending would have been Ani returning to the club to see her best friend and get a pep talk, or stealing the ring herself and buying a car or a condo, or at least take the ring from Igor and pay your rent, Ani. To me, this is the part that Baker will never fully understand. Clients are a means to an end. Money will never break your heart.
But he
Yes.
wasn't a client.
No, but all the people were clients. Like,
Yeah,
and
I'm just saying he
was
wasn't a
working for the
client, though.
But no,
Yeah,
but
okay. Yeah.
But this makes a lot of sense to me. And you're right. Sorry, AG, I realized you had included the whole quote in the outline, and I had read a piece of it earlier, but not the whole thing. And yeah, so Risden, I just want to sit with Risden's words because I think that that's an important takeaway as part of this like movie. Because it there's something about it that didn't quite sit fully right with me in my gut. And, but I mean, I still think like the broader conversation of like, does this movie pop? I think it pops.
Oh,
Like,
I think it pops too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I do think like Mikey Madison, I hope that she gets the opportunity to really like show us so much more in so many other films, and that this is not like sort of one of those like breakthrough roles that doesn't quite go anywhere, you know?
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Do you guys think it has a chance at Oscars?
I think so,
do.
yeah.
I do. Yeah, I do. I think it has a really good chance.
I mean, I don't think that there is any breakout favorite movie that seems like it's going to sweep everything this year.
I think The Brutalist might, but
Well, there's no women in that, right?
Right, exactly.
Almost no women, so
yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
don't worry about the lead actress category.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's black and white and dudes, you know. So just a guess.
Oh, bleep.
I know where all your Oscar pool is going to go on then.
Yeah, you do. Yep.
All right. Well, I also think Mikey has a good chance, and I'm hopeful for her, and just for her future in film.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
We love to leave our episodes on something else that we recommend. Lisa, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier, A Real Pain, the really sweet movie written and directed by Jesse Eisenberg with Kieran Culkin and their two very different cousins that go to Poland to visit where their grandmother came from, and that she had been survived the Holocaust, and they go on a tour of Poland with some different people to kind of get a sense of what World War II was like there. And it's a beautiful, small film. It'll make you cry and laugh, and just a really great film. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm looking forward to watching it. AG, what about you?
Well, so we are all J-Lo completists, so I thought I'd get a jump start on Unstoppable.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Watch that. And it's actually, you know, like it's a biographical sports drama about Anthony Robles, who's a wrestler who was born without a leg and overcomes like many obstacles to eventually become like a wrestling champion in college. And she plays his mother. And, you know, like, I think it's a good sports movie. And I think that, like, I love that J-Lo is able to convincingly play, like, a working class, middle-aged mom in this. And she's not afraid to take on, like, roles like this. And, like,
But Made in Manhattan, she was that. I think it's just a little step up from
well, she, you know, like, yeah. This one is, she, like... I don't know. You'll have to watch it for yourself, but
yeah, I will.
Like, yeah, she's very excellent in this movie, and I think it, like, harkens the future for her as like she's acting in this movie, and like it's like she's not just playing like a version of her glamorous self in this movie. And so yeah, I think if you like sports dramas, this one's a good one.
Excellent. I mean, I don't, but I do love J-Lo, so
Yeah.
I guess I'm in.
Well, this Anthony Robles, his story is very compelling.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm going to recommend a movie as well. But to be fair, I only got to watch half of it because our nephew got sick halfway through and we had to leave the film. But what I saw halfway through was incredible. It's called Flow. It's a 2024 animated independent fantasy adventure film directed by Gintz Zeballotis, and it is Latvia's entry for Best International Feature at the Academy Awards. And it's an animated movie with no dialogue about a cat that encounters a bunch of other animals after a giant tsunami happens and floods the land. And it's beautiful and incredible. And it's the background of it. The film, this is from Wikipedia, but it's notable for being completely rendered on the free and open source software Blender. And
Is it different than the dog story that you recommended to us about with no dialogue where the dog walks around the city?
It's different.
Okay.
It's different.
I'm starting to feel a niche for you here.
I love animals that don't talk.
Yeah.
No, I just... No, this one it's been so popular that talking to a friend of the podcast, Rachel, who does the programming at the Rio, it has been so wildly popular at the Rio that they have reprogrammed it multiple times over the last 2 months because the screenings are so full.
Wow.
So it's only in theater. It's only in the theater, I think, for another like week and a half or something after this comes out, or maybe a week after this comes out. I'm not sure, but if you get a chance, go see it. It's called Flow. Its Latvian title is Strom.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone. I'm gonna have to speed up our party here because I gotta
You gotta go.
I gotta go. I gotta.
Thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you, Andrea Gin. You're our fabulous producer and come right down the middle of all of our arguments. So thank you.
Someone has to.
Somebody has to. Yeah.
Beautiful Switzerland.
Yes. Thanks so much, everyone.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.